Hello, I'm Grace. Welcome and welcome back again to my channel. So let's just jump right into the video. So I already drafted this pattern, and if you haven't seen the video, it's going to be linked in the description box, so you could check out the previous video. But for today's video, I'm planning on making it with like a loop instead of the zip. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to trace this last part, number 4, on a different paper, which is where this one comes in play. And I'm just going to put this here and trace this out. So why am I tracing this out? I'm tracing this out because I want to connect it to this pattern, to the number 3 pattern. Connect these two sides together first, like so. Cut it out, then connect it to this pattern. After connecting the other part, so which is this portion right here, with this is what I have. And because I've connected that, this one we don't need it for this particular project. So when I'm making one with a zip, I'll use that for the project, and when I'm making the pattern. So yeah, so these are the 4 you would need to create your pattern, so to cut on your fabric, I mean. So, and first of all, I'm going to start off by cutting these two first. So this one is going to be cut on a fold, and this is going to be cut, 2 pieces will be cut for this. So for this project right here, I plan on using like my scrap fabric. Put this on fold like this, because this part is going to be on fold, right? So I need this part here and this, and I don't want to waste the fabric, so I'm going to fold them accordingly. Don't forget that there was no seam allowance included on this, so you want to make sure the fabric is enough for seam allowance. So this is just about it. Then I'm going to pin all these ones down. So now I'm just going to trace out the 1/2 inch on all of them. Okay, so now that I've cut the one for the front part of the top, for the back we've got cutting 2 of this, and I want to use a different fabric for that, because I want this to be like a patchwork kind of this thing. So yeah, so for this we'll be using this to have right sides facing each other. Place this like so, pin them down and cut. And now what's left is this, after which you cut out the lining as well. So for this one I want to use this fabric. So like I said, this is basically a patchwork kind of thing going on here. So let's use this. I want to use this side of the fabric. I think it's going to be nice to use this side of it. So All right, so now we're going to start off by sewing the bodice first, and let me just take the pins out. So we'll pin this side to this side, and so I just want to pin all of them. It makes my work easier. I pin this side, and so then I'm going to take the back bodice and pin it as well, so that I just take it to the sewing machine and sew all of them at once. So I'm just going to sew all these sides. So basically sewing the center front and the side front together, then going ahead to sew the side front and the back piece together. Okay, and do the same thing for the lining. I've already sewed the bodice together, so I'm just going to go to the sewing machine and sew the cup or cups together. And for the foam part, the foam part doesn't have any seam allowance, like you can see, because you're going to connect them together using a zigzag stitch. So you connect them together like this. I'll show you on the sewing machine using a zigzag stitch to just connect them. I basically went ahead to sew this as well as the lining for this, which is this like you saw in the previous clip. So basically what I'm going to do right now is connect this cup to the bust cup, to the the cup shape here. So I'm doing this for the main one and the bodies as well. Okay, so when you pin all of them down, this is what you should have. Like both sides should be connected together like so, and if one side or the other is longer than what it's meant to be, that means there must have been a mistake somewhere, so you could check it out and correct the mistake. Everything down, I'm just going to go to my sewing machine and I'm just going to sew this all around here and do the same thing for the lining as well, and I will be right back. All right, so I already went ahead to go sew this down as well as the lining. So what I'm going to do right now is to add this cup to where it needs to go. So I'm putting it in here. So I'll put this cup here. So I'm just going to put the foam in where the cups need to be at. I'll pin them down. I'm not going to sew them just yet. I'll just pin them down first. All right, now that I've pinned it down, this is what it will look like. All right, so I'm going to go in with the lining, and I'm just going to place the lining on top of this like so. Then I'll pin it as well. So I will pin all the three together. I'll pin the foam, the fabric and the lining together, so that when I am sewing, I will sew on a 1/2 inch seam allowance and sew all of them together. Okay, on a 1/2 inch seam allowance, because remember we created a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top, so we need to use that to stitch all this down. All right, so now that I sewed everything down like this, before we turn this over, we're going to create notches, because if we turn it over right like this right now, it's going to be too stiff here. So when you turn it over, it is going to be somewhat flat. You can see it's going to be flat. But when you create notches here, it gives for room to move. So when it moves, it gives you the curve you need, right? So before I do that, I'm going to also go ahead and just trim off the excess foam at the top here. So now that we've cut it out, let's create the notches by just cutting almost close to where you sewed on, but making sure that you don't clip the stitches you created. And this place is also very important. You create notches, because it's just like the rest, is going to just remain flat without creating the notches there. So we need to create our notches well. Okay, so now that we've created the notches, you can see it gives for room to move around now. So you see that when we turn this over, you would have the curve you need. Hold up. So now that we've turned it over, you can see now it's rather than before that it was just flat like this, now it actually has that curve you need. So what you want to do is to go ahead to just iron this, flat first, because we're going to top stitch at the top of this. So we need to make sure that it is well ironed first before we do that, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I'm basically done ironing it, and as you can see, it's kind of taking shape now, right? So I want to put the stitching boning there. I'm going to use this boning, and the reason why it has like thread on it at the moment is because I used it for a previous project I was working on that I didn't really like as much, so I decided to take the bonings down rather than wasting them, which is what I'm going to use here. So I've been thinking about, rather than just doing the regular putting bias here and doing that, I'm just going to stitch it onto this. I'm going to stitch it on the fabric itself, right? So I'm just basically going to stitch it here like so. And I was thinking, rather than doing the regular bias tape there, I'll try and make it somewhat fun and decorative. So I went on my sewing machine. I used a Singer, some 725 or something. I can't remember the name, but I'll write it down. But it has some decorative stitches on it. So I tried some of the stitches. I don't know if you can see it from over there, but I'm going to do like an up close video of it. But I tried some of the stitches to just make it look nice, and I intentionally use this fabric because, you know, this is the one that I'm using here, and this is the one I think I'm going to go for, right? So I feel like it's going to come out very beautifully. So I'm going to show you like a separate video, like a separate clip on how to do this, but I'm just going to go ahead to just stitch these bonings onto this, after which I'll show you like what I did. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so now that I'm basically done with that, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see very well, but you can look at the decorative stitches. It's subtle, but it is also there and visible. I really liked it, and I mean, this just made me realize that I think I'd like to start using more of the decorative stitches on my sewing machine, because I haven't explored any one of them at all before. This is the first time I am doing this, and I really love it. So now what I'm going to do is, another thing I realized is that I initially wanted to put straps here, but I forgot and just made it like this, and I'm not going to go back and do that. But if you would like to put straps on your own, that's totally fine. I think I'm just going to leave this and make this a tube top and pair it like this, or with a jacket or something. So now that what I'm going to do right now is just pin this loop I already created. I'll pin it like fold it into two, because this is a 2-inch long, or yeah, 2-inch long strip or loop. I'm going to fold it into two like so, and I will just pin it in here like this. Just use a pin to just secure that. I'm going to take this measurement first, then to know how to go about this, because I don't want it, I want the spacing to be evened out. So this is about 6.5. So I'm going to make pin another one here, and one will be here. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 loops. Let me just use my chalk to mark it out so I know where I'm to pin at. So you could decide to do one inch spacing, but I think I'm okay with the 2-inch. It will give enough space. It will give enough, like, yeah, space. 2, then the fourth one rather will be here. So now that I've done that, it's easier to just pin the rest. Okay, so now that I'm basically done sewing everything around, the next step is to top stitch this. And you know, we already pinned this down, so you're going to top stitch like at the outer part of the cup, like just 1 millimeter away from this like the seam stitch here. So just going to stitch that down so that it would keep this from moving around, keep the bust area from moving around. So that's what we'll just do right now. We'll stitch like all the way to get here. Do the same thing for this one, stitch till we get here. And now that I've stitched the two of them, this is what I have. For the final step, you're going to just cut out a very long strip, or then just sew on the right side of it, and you flip it over